I spent the night sleeping with one eye open. I was more concerned about what our guides might do than about the hyenas sniffing around our camp. So when dawn came, I had dark circles under my eyes. I was trying as hard as I could to stay awake as I rode, but the steady swaying of the camel only added to my drowsiness. We were riding across a plain with the sun to our right side. Ibrahim and his friends had improvised saddles for us from sacks of salt. I understood this was the goods they were carrying from the interior of the Sahara to the native villages along the Niger. They had sold their merchandise, and now they were returning to the base camp with their profit either in money or other goods. They would make a detour to leave us at our destination. Of course, the landscape was still dry and totally flat, with no trees or bushes anywhere in sight. It hadn't rained there in many years, and I would have been surprised to find a living creature in a place so scorched by the sun and the dreadful wind of the desert. At that early morning hour, my face felt as if it had opened the door of a gigantic furnace. "Hello, stranger." The familiar voice brought me out of my daze. "Do you come here often?" I turned around as much as I could on my saddle. Cassandra had a dark blue scarf wrapped around her head like a Tuareg, her eyes shining bright. "Wow, I see you're adapting fast. Ibrahim gave it to me, and I love it. It makes me feel like a 19th century explorer." "I don't want to ruin your experience, but does the explorer know that the scarf is dyed with indigo? That means that as soon as you start sweating, your skin and hair will turn an interesting navy blue." Cassandra was silent for a minute. She held the reins with her right hand while rubbing a corner of the scarf with her left one. The tips of her fingers turned blue. She raised her head, and I thought she was going to burst out against me for not having warned her beforehand about the side effects of using a Tuareg turban. But with eyes wide open and a crazy expression on her face, she raised her fist, jabbed her finger at the sky, and yelled, "I am Cassandra Brooks, Queen of the Desert." Then she kicked her camel and galloped away, yelling like Buffalo Bill. "What has gotten into her?" "I guess it's the heat, Doc," I said as she disappeared in a cloud of dust. "It's gotta be the heat." By noon, nobody felt like joking around anymore. Our guides walked beside their camels, apparently indifferent to the heat, which by now barely allowed breathing. We formed a long line, like a strange cinnamon-colored caterpillar with 50 humps. We were at the head of the caravan, with 2 of the camel drivers. The others were spaced along the formation to prevent any mishap among the camels. Compared with the horses I had ridden on occasion, camels were much less graceful. Apart from the inconvenience of having a hump in the middle of their back, it did not seem as if God had created them thinking that humans would want to ride them someday. They were uncomfortable, more stubborn than mules, and smelled far worse, at least mine. They also had a terrible temper, which they often displayed. The one the professor was riding had already tried to bite him a couple of times.
"Ah, you damned animal,"
he said when it happened again.
"You'll do that once more, and I'll cut off your hump. Ah, you'll see if I don't."
He was riding beside me now, looking tired. Beads of sweat slid down his glasses. On his camel, he looked like a snowman slowly melting.
"Ulysses,"
he whispered,
"there is something I've been meaning to ask you."
"Okay, shoot." He leaned forward so Cassie could not hear.
What would stop these men from killing us and taking all of our money instead of keeping their side of the bargain?"
"Nothing. If they wanted to kill us, nothing would stop them."
"Wow, it's really comforting to talk to you."
"Don't worry, Doc. I promised that they'd get half the money when we arrived at Trebishat, and that a friend coming from Gao would be waiting for us there."
"Did you lie to them?"
"I'll go to confession when we get back home. For now, what matters is that they don't try anything for fear of not getting their money." The professor made a face, not completely convinced.
"Well, I hope that they are honest enough,"
patted his camel's neck.
"or greedy enough."
As is usual in the desert, a fierce wind came in from the north at sundown. It was loaded with sand that whipped straight into our faces.